Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll continue our reading from the Nectar of Devotion by Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, originally Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu by Rūpa Gosvāmī. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhete girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Dīntarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hariyam Tatsat. Chapter 35, Neutral Love of God. Shri Rūpa Gosvāmī offers his respectful prayers to the Eternal Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always so beautiful and for whom the pure devotees are always engaged in loving transcendental service. This third division of Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu describes the 5 primary kinds of devotional service, namely neutrality, servitude, fraternity, parenthood, and conjugal love. These 5 items will be very elaborately explained here, and thus they have been figuratively described as the 5 waves on the western side of this ocean of the nectar of devotion. When one is actually able to maintain the transcendental position, his stage is called neutrality in devotional service. Some great sages have attained this neutral position by practicing austerity, penance, and meditation to control the senses. Such sages are generally called mystic yogis, and in most cases they are inclined to appreciate the spiritual pleasure of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. They are practically unaware of the transcendental pleasure derived from personal contact with the Supreme Godhead. Actually, the transcendental pleasure derived in association with the Supreme Person is far greater than the pleasure derived from impersonal Brahman realization. Because of the direct meeting with the eternal form of the Lord, impersonalists do not directly derive the transcendental pleasure of association with the Lord by hearing of his pastimes. As such, the impersonalist cannot derive any relishable transcendental pleasure from the topics of Bhagavad-Gita in which the Lord is personally talking with Arjuna. The basic principle of their impersonal attitude does not allow them the transcendental pleasure which is relished by a devotee whose basic principle of understanding is the Supreme Person. The impersonalistic commentary on Bhagavad-Gita is therefore disastrous, because without understanding the transcendental pleasure of the Gita, the impersonalist wants to interpret it in his own way. If an impersonalist can, however, come in contact with a pure devotee, his transcendental position can be changed for greater elevation. Great sages are therefore recommended to worship the form of the Lord in order to achieve that highest transcendental pleasure. Without worshipping the Arch Vigraha, the form or the deity of the Lord, one cannot understand such literature as Bhagavad-Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. For those great sages situated in the position of transcendental neutrality, the beginning should be to take shelter of Lord Vishnu, the 4-handed eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mystic yogis are therefore advised to meditate on the form of Lord Vishnu as recommended by Kapil Muni in the Sankhya Yoga system. Unfortunately, many mystic yogis try to meditate on something void, and as stated in the Gita, the result is that they simply undergo trouble and do not achieve any tangible result. When some great saintly persons who had undergone penances and austerities saw the 4-handed transcendental form of Vishnu, they remarked, "This 4-handed form of the Lord, manifested in a bluish color, is the reservoir of all pleasure and the center of our living force." Actually, when we see this eternal form of Vishnu, we, along with many other Paramhamsas, become immediately captivated by the beauty of the Lord. This appreciation of Lord Vishnu by saintly persons is an instance of situation in Shantarasa, or the neutral stage of the devotional service. In the beginning, those who are aspiring for salvation try to get out of the material entanglement by performing painful austerities and penances, and ultimately they come to the impersonal status of spiritual realization. At this Brahmabhut stage of liberation from material entanglements, the symptoms as explained in Bhagavad-Gita are that one becomes joyous beyond any hankering or lamentation and gains a universal vision. When the devotee is situated in the Shantarasa or neutral stage of devotional service, he appreciates the Vishnu form of the Lord. Actually, all Vedic culture is aiming at understanding Lord Vishnu. In the Rig Veda, one mantra says that any advanced saintly person is always aspiring to be fixed in meditation upon the lotus feet of Vishnu. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that the foolish do not know that Vishnu is the ultimate goal of life. According to the conclusion of all authoritative Vedic scriptures, when a person comes to the stage of appreciating Vishnu, he is at the beginning of devotional service. If one cultivates devotional service further and further, under proper guidance, other features of devotional service will gradually become manifest. At this stage of Shantaras, one can see Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the deliverer of even the demons. The Lord is appreciated by such would-be devotees as the eternal transcendental form, the chief of all self-realized souls, the Supersoul and the Supreme Brahman. He is also appreciated as being completely peaceful, completely controlled and pure, merciful to the devotees and untouched by any material condition. This appreciation of Lord Vishnu in awe and veneration by the saintly is to be understood as the sign that they are situated in the Shantarasa or the neutral stage of devotional service. This stage of Shantarasa can be attained by the impersonalists only when they are in association with the pure devotees. Otherwise, it is not possible. After Brahman realization, when a liberated soul comes in contact with a pure devotee of Lord Krishna and submissively accepts the teachings of Lord Krishna without misinterpretation, he becomes situated in the neutral stage of devotional service. The best example of saintly persons situated in the Shantarasa are Sanak Sanatan, Sanand and Sanat Kumar, the Kumar brothers. These four saintly persons, known as Chatushana, are the sons of Lord Brahma. After their birth, when they were ordered by their father to become householders and increase human society, they refused the order. They said they had already decided not to become entangled with family life. They would rather live as saintly brahmacharis for their own perfection. So these great saints have been living for millions of years now, but still they appear to be just like boys of 4 or 5 years. Their complexions are very fair, there is an effulgence in their bodies, and they always travel naked. These four saintly persons almost always remain together. In one of the prayers of the Kumar brothers, this declaration is made: O Lord Mukunda, Krishna, the giver of liberation, only so long as one does not happen to see your eternal form of bliss and knowledge, appearing just like a new-grown tamala tree with a bluish hue, only for so long can be impersonal feature of the absolute truth known as Brahman be very pleasing to a saintly person. The qualifications of a saintly person are described in the Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu as follows. A saintly person is one who understands fully that simply by discharging devotional service he can become confident of liberation. He is always situated in the regulative principles of devotional life and at the same time aspires to be liberated from material entanglement. A saintly person thinks like this: when shall I be able to live alone in the caves of the mountains? When shall I be dressed simply with undergarments? When shall I be satisfied by eating simply a little fruit and vegetables? When will it be possible for me to think always of the lotus feet of Mukunda, who is the source of the Brahman effulgence? When in such a spiritual condition of life shall I understand my days and nights to be insignificant moments in eternal time? The devotees and self-realized persons who are engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord always maintain an ecstatic love for the Lord within their hearts. Thus they are benefited by the rays of the ecstatic moon, and they are called saintly persons. The impulse of a saintly person is to be engaged in the study of the Vedas, especially in the Upanishadic portions, to live always in a place where there is no disturbance from the common people, to think always of the eternal form of the Krishna, to be ready to consider and understand the absolute truth, to be always prominent in exhibiting knowledge, to see the Supreme Lord in his universal form, Vishwarup, to associate always with the learned devotees, and to discuss the conclusions of the Vedas with similarly elevated persons. All of these qualifications of a saintly person serve to raise him to the status of Shantarasa. In the Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu, it is stated that all those who attend the pious meeting held by Lord Brahma for the study of Vedic literature like the Upanishads became overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna, the chief of the Yadu dynasty. Actually, the result of studying the Upanishads is to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Negation of material existence is only one of the subjects of Upanishads. The next subject concerns becoming situated in the impersonal realization, and then after penetrating through the impersonal Brahman, when one comes to the platform of associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one reaches the ultimate goal in studying the Upanishads. Those who are situated on the platform of Shantarasa get their impetus for advancement in devotional service by smelling the tulasi offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, by hearing the sound of his conch shell, by seeing a sanctified place in some mountain or hill, by observing a forest like the ones in Vrindavan, by going to a place of pilgrimage, by visiting the course of the Ganges river, by being victorious over the dictations of bodily demands, that is, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, by understanding the devastation of eternal time, and by constantly associating with devotees engaged in Krishna consciousness. All these different items are favorable in elevating saintly persons situated in Shantarasa to the advanced stage of devotional life. In the 3rd canto, 15th chapter, verse 43 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a statement by the 4 saintly persons known as Chatusana, headed by Sanak Kumar. They went to visit the Lord of Vaikuntha Lok in the spiritual sky, and when they bowed down before the Lord, the aroma of the tulsi mixed with the saffron entered their nostrils and immediately attracted their minds. Although these 4 saintly persons were always absorbed in the thought of impersonal Brahman from association with the Lord and from smelling the tulasi leaves, the hairs of their bodies immediately stood up. This shows that even a person who is situated in Brahman realization, if he is put into association with devotees in pure devotional service, will immediately become attracted to the personal feature of the Lord. There are certain symptoms of great sages who are situated in Shantarasa devotional service, and these symptoms are exhibited as follows. They concentrate their eyesight on the tip of the nose, and they behave just like an Avadhut. Avadhut means a highly elevated mystic who does not care for any social, religious, or Vedic conventions. Another symptom is that such persons are very careful to step forward when giving speeches. When they speak, they join together the forefinger and thumb. This is called Gyan Mudra position. They are not against the atheists, nor they are particularly inclined to the devotees. Such persons give stress to liberation and detachment from the materialistic way of life. They are always neutral and have no affection for nor misidentification with anything material. They are always grave but fully absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These uncommon features develop in devotees who are situated in Shantarasa. Regarding concentration of the eyesight on the tip of the nose, there is a statement in the Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu by a devotee who observed this being performed by a yogi. He remarked, "This great sage is concentrating his eyesight on the tip of his nose, and from this it appears that he has already realized the eternal form of the Lord within himself." Sometimes a devotee in Shantarasa yawns, stretches his limbs, instructs on devotional service, offers respectful obeisances unto the form of the Lord, offers nice praise to the Lord, and has a desire to give direct service with his body. These are some of the common symptoms of the devotee who is situated in neutrality. One devotee, after observing the yawning of the other devotee, addressed him thus, "My dear mystic, I think that within your heart there is some ecstatic devotional love which is causing you to yawn. It is sometimes found that a devotee in the Shantarasa falls down on the ground, his hairs stand up on his body, and he trembles all over. In this way, different symptoms of ecstatic trance are exhibited automatically by such devotees. In the Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu, it is said that when Lord Krishna was blowing his conch shell known as Panchajanya, many great sages who were living in the caves of the mountains immediately reacted, being awakened from their trance of meditation. They immediately saw that the hairs of their bodies were standing. Sometimes devotees in Shantarasa become stunned, peaceful, jubilant, deliberate, reflective, anxious, dexterous, and argumentative. These symptoms indicate continuous ecstasy or established emotion. Once a great realized sage was lamenting that the Supreme Lord Krishna was living in Dwaraka, but that he was unable to take advantage of seeing him. After thinking this, the sage immediately became stunned. He was thinking that he was simply wasting his time. In other words, the sage lamented because the Supreme Personality of Godhead was personally present, but he still could not take the advantage of this because of his meditation. When a mystic is transcendental to all kinds of mental concoctions and is situated in Brahman, this stage is called trance. Beyond the influence of the material conceptions of life, in that stage, when one hears about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, there may be shivering in the body. When a Brahman realized devotee who has come to the stage of steady trance comes into contact with the eternal form of Krishna, his transcendental pleasure increases millions of times. One great sage once inquired from another, "My dear friend, do you think that after I perfected the eightfold yoga performance, I shall be able to see the eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead?" This inquiry from the sage is an instance of inquisitiveness in a devotee situated in the neutral stage of devotional service. When Lord Krishna, along with his elder brother Balram and sister Subhadra, came to Kurukshetra in chariot on the occasion of solar eclipse, many mystic yogis also came. When these mystic yogis saw Lord Krishna and Balram, they exclaimed that now they had seen the excellent body effulgence of the Lord, that they had almost forgotten the pleasure derived from impersonal Brahman realization. In this connection, one of the mystics approached Krishna and said, "My dear Lord, you are always full of transcendental bliss, excelling all other spiritual positions. And so simply by seeing you from a distant place, I have come to the conclusion that there is no need of my being situated in the transcendental bliss of impersonal Brahman." When a great mystic was once awakened from his meditative trance by hearing the vibration of Krishna's Panchjanya conch shell, the mystic became overpowered. So much so, in fact, that he began to bash his head on the ground, and with eyes full of tears of ecstatic love, he violated all the rules and regulations of his yoga performances. Thus he at once neglected the process of Brahman realization. Bilvamangal Thakur, in his book Krishna Karnamrita, says, "Let the impersonalists be engaged in the process of transcendental realization by worshipping the impersonal Brahman. Although I was also initiated into that path of Brahman realization, I have now become misled by a naughty boy, one who is very cunning, who is very much attached to the gopis, and who has made me his maidservant. So I now have forgotten the process of Brahman realization." Bilumangal Thakur was the first spiritually initiated for impersonal realization of the absolute truth, but later on, by his association with Krishna and Vrindavan, he became an experienced devotee. The same thing happened to Sukadeva Goswāmī, who also reformed himself by the grace of the Lord and took to the path of devotional service, giving up the way of impersonal realization. Shukadeva Goswāmī and Bilumangal Thakur, who gave up the impersonal conception of the absolute truth to take the devotional service, are the best examples of devotees situated in the neutral rasa, or the neutral state. According to some authorities, this condition cannot be accepted as one of the transcendental humors or rasas, but Srila Rūpa Goswāmī says that even if one does not accept it as transcendental humor, one must still accept it as the beginning position of the devotional service. However, if one is not further raised to the platform of actual service to the Lord, he is not considered to be one on the platform of transcendental mellow. In this connection, in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna personally instructs Uddhav like this: "The state of being established in my personal form is called Shantaras, and without being situated in this position, no one can advance to actual pure devotional service." In other words, no one can be situated in the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without being situated at least in Shantarasa. Chapter 36, Transcendental Affection, Servitude. So this is the second rasa of the 5 rasas. The transcendental mellow of affection has been accepted by authorities like Sridhar Swami as a perfectional stage of devotion. It is above the humor of neutrality and is requisite for the development of the serving humor. In literature such as Nama Kaumudi, this state of existence is accepted as continuous affection for or attraction to Krishna. Authorities like Shukadev consider this stage of affection to be in the neutral stage. But in any case, this affection is relished by the devotees in different transcendental states, and therefore the general name for this state of affection is affection or pure affection for Krishna. Devotees engaged in servitude are attached to Krishna in the affection of reverence. Some of the inhabitants of Gokul, Vrindavan as exhibited on earth, are attached to Krishna on this platform of affection in reverence. The inhabitants of Vrindavan used to say, Krishna is always manifest before us with a complexion like a blackish cloud. He holds his wonderful flute in his lotus hands. He is dressed in yellow silks and bedecked with a peacock feather on his head. When Krishna walks near Govardhan Hill with these personal features, all the inhabitants of the heavenly planets as well as the inhabitants of this earth feel transcendental bliss and consider themselves the eternal servants of the Lord. Sometimes the devotee becomes filled with the same awe and reverence by seeing a picture of Vishnu, who is dressed like Krishna and who has a similar complexion. The only difference is that Vishnu has 4 heads in which he holds the conch shell, the disc, the club and the lotus flower. Lord Vishnu is always decorated with many valuable jewels such as Chandrakant stones and Suryakant stone. In the Lalit Madhav by Rūpa Gosvāmī, there is the following statements by Daruk, one of the servants of Krishna. Certainly Lord Vishnu is very beautiful with his necklace of Kaustubh jewel, his 4 hands holding the conch shell, disc, club and lotus flower, and his dazzling beautiful jewelry. He is also very beautiful in his eternal position riding upon the shoulder of Garuda. But now the same Lord Vishnu is present as the enemy of Kansa, and by his personal feature I am completely forgetting the opulence of Vaikuntha. Another devotee once said, this supreme personality of Godhead, from whose bodily pores come millions of universes permanently rising, who is the ocean of mercy, who is the owner of inconceivable energies, who is always equipped with the all perfection, who is the origin of all incarnations, who is attraction for all liberated persons. This very supreme personality of Godhead is supreme controller and the supremely worshipable. He is all cognizant, fully determined and fully opulent. He is the emblem of forgiveness and the protector of surrendered souls. He is munificent, true to his promise, expert, all auspicious, powerful and religious. He is a strict follower of the scripture. He is the friend of the devotees, and he is magnanimous, influential, grateful, reputable, respectable, full of all strength and submissive to pure love. Surely he is the only shelter of devotees who are attracted to him by the affection of servitorship. The devotees of the Lord in servitude are divided into 4 classes. Appointed servants such as Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, who are appointed to control the material modes of passion and ignorance. Devotees in servitude who are protected by Lord, devotees who are always associated with devotees who are always following the footsteps of the Lord. Appointed servants. In a conversation between Jambavati, one of Krishna's wives, and Kalindi, her friend, Jambavati inquired, who is this personality circumambulating our Krishna? Kalindi replied, she is Ambika, the superintendent of all universal affairs. Then Jambavati inquired, who is the personality who is trembling at the sight of Krishna? Kalindi replied, he is Lord Shiva. Then Jambavati inquired, who is the person offering praise? Kalindi replied, he is Lord Brahma. Jambavati then asked, who is that person who has fallen on the ground and offering respect to Krishna? Kalindi said, he is Indra, the king of heaven. Jambavati next inquired, who is this person who has come with the demigods and is laughing with them? Kalandi replied, "He is my elder brother, Yamraj. He lives in the superintendent of death." This conversation offers a description of all the demigods, including Yamraj, who are engaged in service. This is appointed by the Lord. They are called Adhikrita Devata, or demigods appointed to particular position of the departmental services. Devotees under the protection and shelter of the Lord. One resident of Vrindavan once told Lord Krishna, "My dear Krishna, O pleasure of the Vrindavan, being afraid of this material existence, we have taken shelter of you, for you can completely protect us. We are well aware of your greatness. As such, we have given up our desire for liberation and have taken complete shelter under your lotus feet. Since we have heard about your ever-increasing transcendental love, we have voluntarily engaged ourselves in the transcendental service." This statement is by a devotee who is under the protection and shelter of Lord Krishna. Upon being chastised by Krishna's constant kicking on his head, Kaliya, the black snake of the Yamuna, came to his senses and admitted, "My dear Lord, I have been so offensive unto you, but still you are so kind that you have marked my head with the impression of your lotus feet." This is also an instance of one's taking shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. In the Aparadha Bhanjana, a pure devotee expresses his feelings, "My dear Lord, I am ashamed to admit before you that I have carried out the orders of my masters named lust, anger, avarice, illusion, and envy. Sometimes I carried out their orders in a way most My dear Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, yet in spite of my serving them so faithfully, they are not satisfied, nor they are kind enough to give me relief from the service. They are not even ashamed of taking service from me in that way. My dear Lord, O head of the Yadu dynasty, now I have come to my senses and I am taking shelter of your lotus feet. Please engage in your service. This is another instance of surrendering and taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord. There are many instances in the various Vedic writings of persons who were aspiring after liberation by speculative knowledge but gave up this process in order to take complete shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna. Examples of such persons are Brahmanas, headed by Shaunak in the forest of Naimisharanya. Learned scholars accept them as devotees having complete wisdom. There is a statement in the Hari Bhakti Subodhya in which these great Brahmanas and sages headed by Shaunak Rishi told Sutta Gosvāmī, "My dear great soul, just see how wonderful it is. Although as human beings we are contaminated with so many taints of material existence simply by our conversing with you about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are now gradually decrying our desire for liberation." In Padyavali, a devotee says, "Persons who are attached to speculative knowledge or self-realization, who have decided that the Supreme Truth is beyond meditation and who have thus become situated in the mode of goodness, let them peacefully execute their engagement. As for us, we are simply attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is by nature so pleasing, who possesses a complexion like a blackish cloud, who is dressed in yellow garments and who is beautiful, lotus-like. We wish only to meditate upon him." Those who are from the very beginning of their self-realization attached to devotional service are called Sevanishta. Sevanishta means being attached to the devotional service. The best example of such devotees are Lord Shiva, King Indra, King Bahulashva, King Ikshvaku, Shruti-dev, and Pundarik. One devotee says, "My dear Lord, your transcendental love qualities attract even the liberated souls and carry them to the assembly of devotees where your glories are constantly chanted. Even great sages who are accustomed to living in solitary places are also attracted by the songs of your glory, and the observing of all your transcendental glories have also become attracted and I have also become attracted, and I have decided to dedicate my life to your loving service. Constant associates. In the city of Dwarka, the following devotees are known as Krishna's close associates: Uddhav, Daruk, Satiki, Shukdev, Shatrujit, Nanda, Upananda, and Bhadra. All of these personalities have remained with the Lord as its secretaries, but still they are sometimes engaged in his personal service. Among the Kuru dynasty, Bhishma, Maharaj, Parikshit, and Vidura are also known as close associates of Krishna. It is said that all the associates of Lord Krishna have lustrous bodily features, and their eyes are so much like lotus flowers. They have sufficient power to defeat the strength of the demigods, and the specific feature of the persons is that they are always decorated with valuable ornaments. When Krishna was in the capital Indraprasth, someone addressed him thus: "My dear Lord, your personal associates headed by Uddhav are always awaiting your order by standing at the entrance gate of Dwarka. They are mostly looking on with tears in their eyes, and in the enthusiasm of their service they are not afraid even of the devastating fire generated by the Lord Shiva." They are mostly looking on with tears in their eyes, and in the enthusiasm of the service they are not even afraid of the devastating fire generated by Lord Shiva. Their souls simply surrendered unto your lotus feet. Out of the many close associates of Lord Krishna, Uddhav is considered the best. The following is a description of him. His body is blackish like the color of the Yamuna river, and it is similarly as cool. He is always decorated with flower garlands first used by Lord Krishna, and he is dressed with yellow silk clothing. His two arms are just like the bolts of a door. His eyes are like the lotus flowers, and he is the most important devotee among all the associates. Let us therefore offer our respectful obeisances unto Uddhav's lotus feet. Uddhav has described the transcendental qualities of Sri Krishna as follows: Lord Sri Krishna, who is our master and worshipable deity, the controller of the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, and the controller of the whole universe as well, accepts the controlling orders of Ugrasen, his grandfather. He is the proprietor of millions of universes, but still he begged a little land from the ocean. And although he is like an ocean of wisdom, he sometimes consults me. He is so great and magnanimous, yet he is engaged in his different activities just like an ordinary person. Followers of the Lord. Those who are constantly engaged in the personal service of the Lord are called anugas or followers. Examples of such followers are Suchandra, Mandana, Stamba, and Sutamba. They are all inhabitants of the city of Dwarka. They are dressed and ornamented like the other associates. The specific services entrusted to the anugas are varied. Mandana always bears the umbrella over the head of Lord Krishna. Suchandra is engaged in fanning with the white chamar bunch of hair, and Sutamba is engaged in supplying betel nuts. All of them are great devotees, and they are always busy in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As there are anugas in Dwarka, so there are many anugas in Vrindavan also. The names of the anugas in Vrindavan are as follows: Raktak, Patrak, Patri, Madhukantha, Madhuvrata, Rasal, Suvilas, Premakand, Marandaka, Anand, Chandrahas, Payod, Bakul, Rasad, and Sharad. Descriptions of the bodily features of the anugas in Vrindavan are given in the following statement: Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the constant associates of the son of Maharaj Nand. They always stay in Vrindavan, and their bodies are decorated with garlands of pearls and with bangles and bracelets of gold. Their colors are like black bees and the golden moon, and they are dressed just to suit their particular special bodily features. Their specific duties can be understood from a statement by Mother Yashoda, who said, "Bakul, please cleanse the yellowish dress of Krishna. Varik, you just flavor the bathing water with aguru scent. And Rasal, you just prepare the betel nuts. You can all see that Krishna is approaching. There is dust overhead and the cows can be seen very distinctly. Among all the Anugas, Raktak is considered to be the chief. The description of his bodily features is as follows. He wears yellow clothing and his bodily colors is just like newly grown grass. He is very expert in singing and is always engaged in the service of the son of Maharaj Nand. Let us all become the followers of Raktak in offering transcendental loving service to Krishna." An example of the attachment felt by Raktak toward Lord Krishna can be understood from his statement to Rasad. "Just hear me, please place me so that I may always be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, who has now become famous as the lifter of the Govardhan hill." The devotees of Krishna engaged in his personal service are always very cautious because they know that becoming personal servitors of Lord Krishna is not an ordinary thing. A person who offers respect even to the ants engaged in the service of Lord becomes eternally happy. So what is there to say of one who offers Krishna direct service? Raktak once said within himself, "Not only is Krishna my worshipable and servable Lord, but also the girlfriends of Krishna, the gopis, are equally worshipable and servable by me. And not only the gopis, but anyone who is engaged in the service of the Lord is also worshipable and servable by me. I know that I must be very careful not to become overly proud that I am one of the servitors and devotees of the Lord." From this statement, one can understand that the pure devotees, those who are actually engaged in the service of the Lord, are always very cautious and are never overly proud of their service. This mentality of the direct servitor of Krishna is called dhurya. According to expert analytical studies of the direct associates of the Lord, Srila Rūpa Gosvāmī has divided these into 3 classes, namely dhurya, dhira and vira. Raktak is classified among the dhurya, or those who are always attached to serving the most beloved gopis. One dhira associate of Krishna is the son of Satyabhama's nurse. Satyabhama is one of the queens of Lord Krishna in Dwarka, and when she was married to Krishna, the son of a nurse was allowed to go with her because they lived together from childhood as brother and sister. So this gentleman, the son of Satyabhama's nurse, used to live with Krishna as his brother-in-law, and sometimes as brother-in-law he used to play jokes with Krishna. He once addressed Krishna in his way, "My dear Krishna, I never tried to gain the favor of the goddess of fortune who is married to you, but still I am so fortunate that I am considered one of the members of your house, the brother of Satyabhama." A Veer associate once expressed his pride, declaring, "Lord Baldev may be a great enemy of Pralambasura, but I have nothing to worry about from him. And as far as Pradyumna is concerned, I have nothing to take from him because he is simply a boy. Therefore, I do not expect anything from anyone else. I simply expect the favorable glance of Krishna upon me, and so I am not even afraid of Satyabhama, who is so dear to me." In the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 20th chapter, verse 28, King Prithu addresses the Lord saying, "My dear Lord, it may happen that the goddess of fortune becomes dissatisfied with my work, or I may even have some misunderstanding with her, but I will not mind this because I have full confidence in you. You are always causelessly merciful to your servants, and you consider even their menial service to be very much advanced, so I have confidence that you will accept my humble service. Although it is not worthy of being recognized, my dear Lord, you are self-sufficient. You can do anything you like without the help of anyone else. So even if goddess of fortune is not satisfied with me, I know that you will always accept my service anyway." Devotees attached to the transcendental loving service of the Lord may be described either as surrendered souls, as souls advanced in devotional knowledge, or as souls completely engaged in transcendental loving service. Such devotees are called respectively neophyte, perfect, and eternally perfect. So we have covered the 2 rasas today, the Shanta rasa and the servitude or the Dasya rasa, and tomorrow we will begin chapter 37, impetuses for Krishna's service. Thank you for joining. Hare Datsat. Hare Krishna.